Awesome. So thanks, Tom, and thanks, Scott, for joining me. Today, we're going to be going through the 4 pillars of transformation. One of the systems, one of the lifestyle systems that we use here at Reignite Pro. I've asked Tom and Scott to come on because Scott is a current client, Tom is a past client, both over in the stateside. And what we wanted to do today is go through an overview of the 4 pillars of transformation itself, what's actually in it as a framework, and then give you guys some visibility on the effects that it's had on Scott and Tom on their sort of fitness, their health endeavors. So I've got some just some thoughts that I'm going to put up on screen. So bear with me as I kind of find those. So we talk about the 4 pillars of transformation as this system, a lifestyle system that you can learn in 12 weeks that kind of lasts 12 years plus, right? And it's designed to be a holistic system in that, we know from the studies that people that have morning, evening routines in place, they tend to statistically earn at least $12,500 more per annum, right? By waking up earlier and actually prioritizing what goes into your day, we can work out that you can gain an additional 52 days per year, right? And also, this system helps you lose 14 to 30 pounds in 90 days. So a couple of things here. This 4 pillars of transformation is developed from years spent in the trenches with senior leaders, much like Tom and Scott, and business owners like Scott. And it was developed over a period of time when looking at solutions that just didn't work for busy, successful professionals, people that were working in demanding, high-stress environments that just didn't have that much time. And what I wanted to, one of the key things that I wanted to go through is why just exercise and diet in and of itself probably isn't enough for sustained success, and what's the sort of the biggest missing components when you want to look at transformation, right, for the longer term. So what are we going to cover basically? We're going to cover 3 main things. Okay, so we're going to cover exactly what the 4 pillars are that are associated with transformation, which will possibly help you understand why you might have failed in the past. We're going to look at how to improve your own personal performance and rise to whatever your next level is. And obviously, we're going to have a chat with both Scott and Tom as we go through and get some real insight from leaders at the top of their field. So just a little bit about me. A lot of you guys watching this on replay will know or have possibly heard of me. I work as a health and performance coach, specifically with business owners, directors, VPs, and C-suites, and help I help successful professionals look, feel, and perform better consistently. So I wanted to just sort of pause there and basically introduce Scott and Tom who've come on with me. So Scott, just because you're closest to me on the left, do you want to give a bit of an intro into who you are, kind of some backgrounds, and what was maybe going on in your life, which sort of drove you to take some action and reach out to work together?
Yeah, absolutely. So Scott Casso, I'm from Oklahoma. I run a small oil and gas brokerage. It's traditionally what we do. We do research in oil and gas in the area. We're expanding to digitize other business essential records and things like that. And I'm married and have 2 children, both very young. I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, 2 little girls. And at the time I reached out to Alex, it was right after the first of the year, and I had looked back the last couple of months and realized that I hadn't taken a day off of drinking. There were some days where it wasn't a whole lot, 1 or 2 beers, but it just felt like I couldn't get away from happy hour every single day. It felt like I couldn't get away from having that crutch in my life. I was working out 2 or 3 times a week, and I thought I was in decent shape. And come to find out there was, about 15 pounds so far. I still think we probably have another 5 pounds that can be shed on top of that, that needed to go. And yeah, we started working on, very slowly in the beginning, trying to hone in on, what am I putting in my body, things like that. And then gradually speeding up to, really kind of honing in on diet and exercise. And then really the biggest component is for me was, the mental side of things, dealing with what's going on in my own life, dealing with what's going on in my business, dealing with, the outlook for the future and things like that. And yeah, so I found Alex sometime in January, reached out to him and asked if he could assist with, I was at a point where I had tried myself to not pull up to the bar every day after work, and it wasn't working. So I wanted a little bit of extra help and told Alex that, this was kind of the path I wanted to go down. And yeah, so here we are 12 weeks later, kind of, I feel like I'm sitting here a different person with a little better handle on things. So.
Nice. Okay. Thanks for that, Scott. That's super
Yeah.
insightful. Tom, so just for everyone's benefit, Scott and I are still working together on Reignite Pro. Tom's actually come through the program. We did some extra work together on Elevate as well, Tom. You've been out of the program now for, must be at least a year, something like that. Can you maybe just give an overview as to your background, and again, what kind of drove you to reach out for help, or was willing to kind of take help on and move towards your goals? What was that?
Sure. Thank you, Alex. So I live in Tampa, Florida. My family and I live in Tampa, and I have been in medical device sales for quite some time. Always felt like I was in decent physical shape, and my weight was more than what I would like. I mean, there was a time I was in the military that my weight was probably about 20 pounds less. I spent some time, overseas, came back, and weight came on pretty quick. And it kind of went up and down after that. And I got up into like the middle upper 190s. So I always kind of exercised, but I never really had a program per se. I just did the basic stuff. And what happened is, I guess what really made me just finally pull the trigger is, I'd exercise, I'd always get my weight down to like 193, 192, and then I would just, fall off the wagon, and then it would come back up. And then right around the whole time with COVID, actually ended up with COVID before the vaccine came out, and my weight ended up pushing up to about almost 200. And with everything associated with that, I thought, okay, I've done all I could do to get the weight down to really where it should be. And I kind of felt like, 180 or so was probably like the optimal weight for me, and I'd probably feel a lot better as well. I could never get under like 190, and everything, I would just like fall off the wagon and go back. And I thought to myself one day, you know what, I'm going to invest in this program. I saw Alex's LinkedIn, and we talked about it. And I thought, one, I need accountability. And two, I thought, I need a structured program that someone's going to work with me on, that's going to go beyond just going to the gym. It's got to be, what do I do with my nutrition? How do I handle myself when I'm traveling? Because with my job, I was traveling a lot, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so it's tough to maintain a nutrition program as well as fitness. People are taking you out to dinner, and then you have a beer, and, how do you like navigate all of that while you're trying to get in good physical shape? So, when I got on with Alex, it started out a little bit slow. And, he took this methodical approach of, looking at the food that you're eating. And then it took about, I want to say about 3 to 4 weeks. And then I kept it on my phone. I actually watched how the weight kind of went like this, and then it just crashed down. And the interesting thing was that I thought like I could make 180, and that was going to be a home run. And Alex actually said, you know what, you can do better. The thing I liked about it is that just when I thought I set a goal, he was like, you got to aim a little higher, and actually got down to like 173, 172, and felt really good. So I'm a little bit more at the moment, but the thing is, the sustainability tools that I have has actually enabled me to just kind of, you know, if I fall off a little bit, I know there's things I could do like at anytime, anywhere. You know, I think about food more from the standpoint of, you know, what's the fuel that I'm going to need for what I'm doing today. And then if I decide I'm going to go out with some friends and, you know, pick a day that I may fall off the wagon a little bit, then what's going to be my recovery plan on this? So it's just a whole new mentality. And I've been out of the program for almost a year and a half now, and I've been able to maintain it very solidly. I mean, I've come up just a little bit, but when I say a little bit, I mean like maybe 3 pounds or so, which it just makes me very mindful of that. And I have the tools to be able to turn it around and stay exactly where I want to be. So that's a little bit about me and kind of how the program affected me.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Tom. So yeah, I mean, I love that because it very much is one of the things that I say to the guys coming on board. We start slow, we finish fast, right? There's kind of that ramping up speed as we start to get things slotting into place in the foundations. And then it's about changing that mindset. It's about what can you do for the long term? And it's great to hear that, you know, you were struggling at 190 and actually, you know, you've now got a system where it's like, it gets up to like 175 and it's like, okay, I've got the tools in place to measure that. So let's just have a look at what some of those tools are that we use, right? So breaking it down, like to ensure that change lasts long term, we use 4 tools primarily, right? So one is exercise and movement, and the tool here is anytime, anywhere. Then we look at nutrition and energy. We also look at high performance routines and lifestyle changes. So this is everything else outside of exercise, nutrition, and psychology, essentially. So anything that's kind of sleep related, anything that's stress related, that's in that third sort of pillar, right? It's getting you to consistently perform at an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. And the final part is mindset. So I just want to touch on like each of these and what actually goes into each of these. So anytime, anywhere framework is a system that's designed to kind of play 3 parts. So one is, you know, morning movement. All of the clients now going through the programs, they have a morning movement component where in the morning to get waste moving around the body, to burn a few extra calories, to get an endorphin rush, to get you mentally and physically in the state that you want to be. There's 5 up to 20 minutes of morning movement, okay? We then use the main part of the exercise program to give you routines that are programmed for any environment. So Tom, for example, is like he's traveling. A gym routine's not going to work for him, but he can't just not exercise. He might not have an hour. He might only have 10, 15 minutes. So something has to be appropriate for any given situation. So Scott, like we have programs, he's exercising at some exercise classes, but he needs to be able to also do stuff at home to supplement that. So how do we use resistance training? How do we use HIIT? How do we use cardio and low intensity, steady state, sport specific even, to develop a program that's holistic and covers all environments that you find yourself in? And then for some clients, what we use is it's called station integration, which is that you might not be able to get to the gym at all, but you know, a client, Alex of mine over in the UK here, who's he works in like a senior sports directorship. So some days he can only do some press ups and squats when the kettle's boiling. Right? His day's that busy, right? But something is always better than nothing, right? And then something more is always better than something. So this system has to build on the time that you have available, the what's in the environment and what you enjoy. So then when we look at nutrition and energy, the protocol here is what we call conscious consistency. And me personally, I've never believed in diets because a diet can get you down to weight. It's a structured way of eating. All diets work on one simple principle, and that's the law of thermodynamics, right? Calories in versus calories out. Now, of course, there's more advancements on this. When you start looking at macronutrients, some take longer to digest than others. And we want to start to layer on that knowledge, right, as you start to go further through the program. But the basic part of conscious consistency, the first part, is about energy equation. So working out what's your total daily energy expenditure, what's your basic metabolic rate, what's your active metabolic rate, and then keeping you accountable to that. The second part then is about optimizing both your sort of longevity through tweaking of your nutrition so that it's appropriate for your metabolic types. That's learning a little bit more about nutrition, learning the right types of things for your body, learning what gives you energy, learning what takes energy away from you, and starting to also look at some broader things like hormones, so leptin, ghrelin, right? Two sort of hormones that we have in the body. Learning about sleep optimization and circadian rhythms. So we've got nutrition and energy going parallel, hand in hand. So this is Tom's transformation, right? And, you know, some of the things that Tom sort of talked about at the beginning was, you know, on the program, lost 20 pounds in 12 weeks, right? Strongest he'd been since his 20s. I remember, Tom, you famously saying that you could do more pull-ups, I think more pull-ups than your son, or certainly more pull-ups in your 50s than you could in your 20s.
Yeah. Not more than my son. He can still outperform me.
Still got that next level to go to. Okay. But I guess, you know, now a year later, you know, what are some of the things that are happening? You know, how are you eating? How are you exercising? What sort of challenges have you faced in the last sort of year and a half?
No, I think I'm overall eating well. I just have a little bit more of a mindful approach when I go to the grocery store and, you know, think about what I'm going to make for dinner. So it's a very different type of shopping that I'll do now versus what I would do before, like a lot less pasta. And I've come up with some new things that I'll make, like these, you know, kale bowls and things like that. But overall, you know, my time at the gym is much more enjoyable. I've got a program that I can work through versus just go there and haphazardly use the machines. You know, I've got days that I do, like Saturdays are usually my ride days, Sundays are my swim days. And when I go to the gym, instead of just kind of getting in and out and not really having a program per se, I'm usually there for a little longer, have some good conversations with people. So like a 30-minute in and out without organization has been replaced with more of about an hour, you know, good intensity workout with a structured program that goes with it. And I do find myself just being more mindful, you know, when I travel, about the food that I eat, look at the menu with a little bit more criticality, like what's going to be the smart thing to pick. So I was traveling last night, was in the airport, and, you know, I found a nice, like, you know, chicken salad versus, you know, going with a burger or something like that. So I don't tend to fall off the wagon as much as I would have, you know, quite some time back. So it's enabled me to just be, you know, just holistically mindful about the nutrition, the exercise. I got up this morning and, you know, I got a quick 30-minute session in to do something. So I try to make sure that each morning I get up and do something. If I do 10 minutes, that's great. If I make it to the gym and have an hour workout, that's great. But the point is I get up and do something every single day just to kind of kick the day off, as you started when you talked about anytime, anywhere.
Nice. And what would you say since, you know, over the last 18 months, what's been the biggest takeaway from the program that's helped? Or what's been the biggest tool, the biggest asset to you?
Oh, and by the way, headwinds as well. The headwinds for me have been the holidays. So it's been better this year than previous years, but I always have to kind of do that recovery. And I'm sorry, what was your question again? What was the biggest learning did you say I had?
Yeah, like since leaving, you know, maybe over the last 18 months, what's been the biggest takeaway or what's been the biggest asset to you from the program?
The biggest asset is what I can say is a way to maintain consistency, and just doing something every day and having some way to stay on that and just being mindful of it has been the biggest thing for me. Because without that, before, you could go like 3-4 months and then you always have to say, wow, I got to go get in shape again. And this is more of a mindset of, you know, I'm not going to let myself get so far out of shape that I have to go back and go, wow, I have to get back in shape. You just keep more of a proactive mindset, and you may see things going in the wrong direction, but you catch it a lot earlier than having to go back and start all over again as if you never started.
Nice. It's like those checks and balances we sometimes talk about. It's like if you don't check the data, you don't check like performance on something for a day, it's only got 24 hours when it can go off course. You don't check it for like 6 months. It's like that's 6 months when it could go up, right? But it could equally go down. So it sounds like having the right sort of checks and balances is really helping there. Unfortunately, Dave couldn't be with us today, but Dave is a tech leader, so he's a director over in the States. Yeah, I know. Good picks, right? My wife was commenting on that this morning. She was like, he's got guns for 60, 62, I think now.
Yeah.
So you can see on the left, that was Dave's transformation during the 12-week process. He lost 16 pounds. One of the biggest takeaways that he said was there's not this cognitive dissonance with the man that he sees in the mirror. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but for him, he's an ex-athlete. So he used to play football or soccer, as you guys call it, semi-professionally. And he used to be a skydiver. So what he was seeing on the left just didn't match up with the identity that he had in his head. The guy on the right much more does. And the guy on the far right, that's Dave a year later, right? And when I checked in with him, it's like, what's happening, right? What are some of the changes? So he said, he's consistently exercising 2 to 3 times a week. He's aware of how to balance calories. He can eat guilt-free. The portions, he's just more consciously aware. But it doesn't stop him from eating what he wants, right? If he eats too much one day, he just pulls it back for the next 3 days. It's not about restriction. It's about more of a balance and control. And, quote here was, I know what I can do to fix things on a schedule I set for myself. I feel strong, capable, and in control of how my body progresses. So awesome to see that from Dave, a year on as well. And, I wish him all the best and sorry he just couldn't be here today, but he had some clashes. So I wanted to go on to Scott. So, Scott, I kind of put a few things here around currently just 10 weeks in, 16.5 pounds down. Business is growing, showing up as a more committed father and role model. But I wanted to ask you, from the last 10 weeks in the program, what's been some of the biggest wins for you?
The distance I've grown with and the discipline that I've had with alcohol has been super important. That was one of the first things I kind of reached out to with assistance. On your LinkedIn profile, it says that, you're this coach and this and that, but that's where I reached out and said, what can we do with this? And you scheduled a call with me and kind of broke it down how we could get into this. And that's been one of the biggest things for me as well. And so that's kind of the, you can call it a couple of different things, but maybe the top of the pyramid or the pivotal thing is that the alcohol has been under control, and with that comes all of these other things. The business is doing so much better because I'm able to show up and be the person that I need to be in charge of the business every single day. I'm there for my kids because I have the energy. I'm not going to the bar after work and having a couple beers and then coming home and dealing with the kids. It's I'm done with work and I come home and I've got time to get down on the floor and play with the kids and get in the bath with them and do those things. And so, my life as it is today, only 10 weeks different than, it was 10 weeks ago. When we spoke about this last week, it seems like I'm exponentially happier with myself. I'm experiencing real happiness and not artificial happiness. And I'm able to, lay my head down at the end of every day and know that, I was the best father I could be that day. I was the best husband I could be that day, and I ran my business, with the utmost energy and trying to get it to grow in the way that we want it to.
Awesome to hear. And I wanted to touch on the business part, right? Because I did a post about this today in some of your story, and I was amazed, when you first told me that 2 years ago, or slightly under 2 years ago, because of COVID, you had to take a role as like a pool boy and working in, was it a pizza place or
a butcher shop? I was, sorry for the foul language, but we coined myself chicken bitch because at the end of the day, I would just be covered up to my elbows with sticky chicken pieces. And I was in there just hacking the skin off chicken all day long, sitting in a refrigerator. Our business, because of COVID, the doors we do a lot of our work out at courthouses, and the day COVID kind of hit in the state, that was one of the first places to close down, was kind of, federal and state local businesses. And so our business shut its doors in, and initially I went and was the chicken guy for a little bit, and then decided I wanted to see the sun a little bit, and was a pool boy. So I was out cleaning pools, checking chemicals, and doing things like that through COVID. And that was a time. It gave me kind of a base of, understanding of somewhere that I that I'll do what I need to do to get by, but I don't necessarily want to return there. And that gives me good motivation every single day to get up and continue doing what I'm doing to get this business to grow, because it certainly beats being covered in chicken bits and smelling like chlorine every single day. So.
And growing exactly is right. And I certainly don't want to take away from what you were doing before, because your business was successful before we even started working together, right? I mean, you were hitting, I think we talked about sort of mid six figures, something like that was like a run rate. But
Yeah.
The last couple of months, something's changed, because we talked about trajectory for this year, and it's like a 7-figure target, right?
Yeah.
What's happened in that space? What's happened in the business space?
Clarity, a bunch of clarity as far as like where the business needs to go. But that starts with me being clear-minded every day when I'm showing up to work, and not riding off of 3 or 4 beers from the night before. And that also means working until 5 o'clock every day, or sometimes later, and not saying, oh, enough work has been done at 3 o'clock, let's excuse ourselves and go have a few. You compound that over time. The same with joining the 5 a.m. club. You add a couple hours to your day over the course of a week. It maybe doesn't seem like a lot, but over the course of a month, a year, I mean, you're getting exponential time back. And starting to do that with my own business, instead of leaving at 3 every day, staying till 5. I mean, it's you get another day of work in every single week, and so I'm feeling ahead. I'm hitting targets before I need to, and it's had me. The distance with alcohol has me more emotionally stable, to where I can deal with the ups and downs of my business in a way that it's not affecting my home life. It's not affecting me as a leader for the business. I work with a few guys in the office, and they've even noticed that, we're not having disagreements. We're not sitting there ending the days yelling at each other, because we've got the business on track where it needs to be going, and kind of going in an upward direction as well. It's more focused. And all of that started with, the underlying theme for me. And I know this is different with everybody, it might be a cheeseburger for somebody else, but with me, it was alcohol, and where that, I kind of had a stranglehold on me. So developing from there, it's allowed me to just, the sky's the limit right now with the business. And I've got more energy right now. We've talked about this individually, that, the next 10 years of our own personal lives, hopefully, are the greatest that we're going to develop in our business, and that's really, if I've got the even more energy now, I mean, I can't wait to talk in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and see where we're sitting, Hopefully it's on my boat somewhere in the tropics. So
I've got Wolf of Wall Street in my mind.
Yeah.
And it's we talked about this, is the leadership of self first, and successful professionals. I'm certainly not speaking about you, but some other guys that I coach and some guys that I talk to will put other people first, and the energy that they've got left for themselves is like a tiny fragment. And if you're not filling up your cup first, leading yourself, it's much harder to lead the other tribes, whether that be family or work or bigger tribes, communities, right? So I want to just talk about the other 2 pillars that we have in the sort of 4-pillar system. So high performance routines is what we call the third one. And you can see on the right here, a sort of peak performance pyramid, which starts with physical capacity at the base, right? So physical routines, morning movement being one of them, right? How do you build endurance and promote sort of mental and emotional recovery, which then leads into emotional capacity? If you're not in control of your emotions and they are sort of free running, they steal your mental clarity, right? And then once you've got emotions in check, it's like, okay, how do I focus? How do I focus on physical, emotional energy? And how do I direct that to the task at hand? So these routines, it's like everyone's routine is different. Tom's might be different from mine, might be different from Scott. So what we do in the program is we give you, one client previously referred to it as like a tasting menu. I think it's, and another guy coming through said it's much more than that. It's a system that's adapted for you. Right. So some of the routines might be waking up earlier, right? Rather than 7 a.m., working back to 6 to 5. So you buy yourself more time. Morning movement, meditation, journaling, affirmations, right? So it's the science of getting you into state, so that over each week we make 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 small changes, over a long enough time period, 12 weeks, for example, that really starts to add up, right? That really starts to ingratiate you with some significant changes, which in all honesty, that's what transformation is, right? Transformation is just a big posh word for change. So this is about physically, mentally, and emotionally setting the frame each day so that you have a greater sense of well-being, you're more energized, you're more efficient, you're more productive. And I guess the final pillar, we call this the corporate athlete mindset, because back when in caveman days, we used to go out hunting, and talk around the campfire. Now we as, men or women, right? We go out hunting, right, into the business environment. That's what we do. And so I call it the corporate athlete mindset, because generally when I speak to a lot of guys, their mindset is it's all or nothing, right? It's either I'm going to absolutely crush it and do everything I can to succeed, secure this deal, to hit the targets, or I'm just going to kick it into touch. And that permeates into other areas of your life, right? Permeates into your health, sometimes permeates into your relationship, permeates into your social connections. So this is about introducing balance and boundaries and giving you the growth mindset. So we start to define a vision, right, of where you want to get to. We start to align your values to that vision. And so you sow the seed so that you emotionally connect stronger to the version of you that you want to be versus the version of you that you are at the moment. And this is essentially upgrading your software, right? Closing the gap between real and perceived self. And as we start to ramp up or amplify that emotion, we start to supersede the existing view of self, or the way that the neurons are connected in the brain. We take advantage of the foundations or fundamentals of neuroplasticity. And over time, you start to step into this new version of yourself. So we do this in a structured way. We'll talk a little bit about some of that process in sort of a minute, and how you guys found it specifically. And in fact, we'll do it now, right? So I put here that my view is that self-identity, how you view yourself, and the standards that go with that for me is the biggest factor in transformation. But when it comes to setting goals and mental health, like what's your guys' view on, the biggest things for you, like when it comes to achieving long-term goals? What's the most important thing to you? I don't know, Scott, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was timing. It was me wanting to make that decision in November. When I was going to the bar and drinking every day, I didn't want to make that decision. In December, when I was going to the bar and drinking every day, I didn't want to make that decision. It wasn't until January, and my wife could have come up and said, "Hey, I want you to make a difference," or my brother could have said, "Hey, I want you to start changing this in your life." And they probably had in the past, but it's not until you kind of take that accountability and you have this goal of what you want in your life. And for me, that was, I want to break this trend. I want to be a more impactful and present father, present husband, present businessman. I want to be, I don't just want to be going through the motions, and I want to feel these things, and it's important to do that. It all came from, when you're ready to do this. If you're not ready to do this program isn't for you, because it's going to challenge you and it's going to ask you to do things that, make you feel uncomfortable and push you to your limits and make you see that those limits are, where you set them in some cases. And that, when I started the program, I didn't think I could shed more than 10 pounds, and we're 15 pounds in, probably another 5 to go in the next month. So, it really surrounds, it comes back to, when are you ready, and then what are those goals? And that all comes from, this program's different probably for every single person that goes through it. Everyone has different, there's a structure to it, but everyone has different goals and different, not everyone wants to go swim around the English Channel or do whatever that is. In my case, getting in the water is not something super high on the list, but what is that for me? Is that getting into a boxing match? Is that going and running 100 miles? What might that be, and growing what those goals might be? But, I think it all starts with when you're ready to start making those changes, and no one else can make that decision for you.
Nice. That's really insightful. Thanks, Scott. And Tom, I guess, from your perspective, you said earlier, and definitely in one of the times previously that we chatted in, a live masterclass like this, that one of the things that happened for you was the willingness to push yourself to achieve even bigger goals, and just to ask the question, like, can I achieve this? Can I do this? What would you say is like, what's the biggest factor in helping you achieve your sort of goals, whether it be health related or whether it be sort of broader?
To me, it was identifying the right goals, because when we went through the program, it wasn't about just, okay, you weigh this today, eat this going forward, do this exercise routine, and then show up. I mean, there was a time we went through, I'm sure you remember, we went through the wheel and looking at like, what's your true north? What are your priorities? What are the goals that are really going to be in alignment with what's your true north? And then putting those in place, and then sticking to that. So it wasn't just about like pushing myself towards a goal that sounds good. It was really towards pushing it towards the goal that was really right for me, for the values that I have as well. Because then you have not just something that you feel like there's going to be, okay, I do this and I get a reward. It's going to be something that is in alignment with who I want to be, what are the values that I hold. So you have more of a commitment to the achievement of the goal, as opposed to just achieving the goal just to achieve the goal.
Nice. And what would you say, either of you guys, like, what's the realization that you had, if any, between physical and mental health? Was there like a correlation between the two that you've started to experience?
I did experience like, one, I did get better sleep habits. That's another thing we talked about. There's a lot of times that, the time everybody realized you just shouldn't eat late at night, but I was really bad about that. But in addition to that, I'd end up staying up later than I would like. I still had to get up and make it to work every day. So my sleep habits were actually pretty poor as well. But I mean, that was something that really helped me in getting in alignment. So that helped my the mental state and calmness as well, just getting better, more quality sleep, in addition to just cutting out that late night snacking also. And that helped with the weight. But after all of that, I did feel better. I did show up stronger. I did have a better start to the day, just getting up, doing as you described, anytime, anywhere, especially when I was traveling. But that added a certain level of ability to step back from complex challenges that would come up and address it in a more thoughtful, calm way, as opposed to being reactionary because I didn't get enough sleep. And I feel like I just had to like knee-jerk react to challenges that I would be faced with in the day. So all of that just added to, I'd say, just a much more solid mental foundation throughout the day.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off that, I think it's Austin Powers. There's a guy that says, I eat because I'm unhappy and I'm unhappy because I eat. Well, the same is true on the flip side of this. Like my workouts are better because of my mental health, and my mental health is better because of those workouts now, and finding the right balance there, is important. I think they're both benefiting each other. And that was something I didn't expect. I thought, maybe it would go one way that, if you have better mental health, maybe your workout will be better, but it's like, they're constantly compounding on each other,
Nice. So it's that kind of cyclical loop of, exercise to breed better cognitive patterns, better thoughts, better emotions linked to that. And then because you have that, there's more consistency and desire to exercise. So it's this kind of thinking, feeling loop, up to the top rather than, a thinking, feeling loop down to the bottom. One breeds consistency and effectiveness and moving forwards. One kind of keeps you stuck in a rut going around in circles. So yeah, awesome. Well, look, I think that just about wraps us up. I wanted to say, a big thank you to both of you guys for popping on and talking with me today, talking through the 4 pillars of transformation. And it's so important, I think, to actually understand your views on actually how it works as a system. Like, does it work first off, and then how it works, and then to see, Tom, in your case, beyond the fold 18 months out, how it's still working. So what I wanted to say is that anyone's watching this on replay, you know, for your opportunity to drive towards whatever peak performance for you looks like, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially, right? All of those holistically together. That just starts with an open and honest conversation about your performance. So what does that look like? What are your goals? And look, this is just the chance for you to ask a few questions about the program, and for me to outline how you would better go about, or how we could assist you in achieving your specific goals. So I wanted to thank you guys for watching, and yeah, stay safe, have an awesome rest of the week, and take care.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you all. Good seeing you again.